You know what, if there were an Olympic medal for being haunted by an HOA, I'd probably win it, no question. Some folks get annoying letters about weeds or fences. Me? I got a police raid on a 150-year-old barn and a secret that tore my neighborhood wide open. So go ahead, take a wild guess which one of Karen's stunts finally made her shut up for good, because this is the story. It started the way disasters always do in a quiet morning. I got a call from Sheriff Martinez. His voice, smooth but serious, told me the HOA president had filed a formal complaint. They wanted to inspect my barn, said it looked like I was hiding dangerous materials. Now, this wasn't just any barn. My grandpa's barn was the last bit of old Meadowbrook Heights, a relic from a time before manicured lawns and those soul-sucking HOA rules about mailbox colors. I'd inherited the place 6 months before and was just getting used to the creaks, the stubborn hinges, and, apparently, the drama. Right after that call, I heard the sharp, rapid click of high heels across my gravel driveway, never a good sign. Karen Whitmore, president of the HOA, was coming in hot. She didn't even pretend to smile, just gripped a manila folder like it was a bulletproof vest. I could see she was tense, but what caught me was how her eyes kept darting toward the barn, not with curiosity, but with the kind of fear you only get from old secrets. She tried to play it official. "I trust you've heard about the inspection, Mr. Crossfield. As HOA president, I have to make sure our community is safe." She listed suspicious activity, late-night flashlights, vague claims about trespassers and illegal storage. You know the type. She sounded rehearsed, but underneath, she was shaking. I told her, "That barn hasn't been opened in months. What's this really about?" She dodged, kept insisting it was just a formality. But her eyes were giving her away. That night, just before bed, I spotted a silhouette out by the barn. Karen herself out there at 11 at night, phone flashlight in hand, poking around like she was looking for treasure. And the next morning, Sheriff Martinez and a rookie officer showed up right on time, with Karen already on my porch, white-knuckled and twitchy. Now, here's where it starts getting weird. The sheriff pointed out that Karen's report was almost too detailed for someone who supposedly never set foot on my property. She led us straight to the barn, stepping over loose gravel and ducking under the oak limb like she'd walked that path 100 times. When we got to the doors, Karen got real anxious, started suggesting we should call hazmat teams, fire trucks, anything to keep us out. But Martinez wasn't buying it. He cracked the old padlock. The barn smelled like a century of oil and hay. At first glance, just the usual stuff: tools, ropes, broken machinery. But in the back, Bradley, the rookie, spotted something odd: a metal safe and a patch of newer floorboards that looked off. Turns out there was a hidden cellar under the barn. The boards lifted with a groan, revealing a dark, hand-dug space lined with crates and, in the middle, a small table with an old leather journal and a metal box. When Martinez opened that journal, the air changed. My grandfather's handwriting, neat and careful, filled page after page, but these weren't farm notes. He'd been documenting a human trafficking ring, recording license plates, dates, and names, all coded, all precise. He wrote about people being moved in vans under cover of darkness, and a KW who kept showing up at key moments. Karen tried to play it off, called the entries ramblings. But the evidence kept stacking up: photographs of vans, cash handoffs, even shots of Karen herself, younger but unmistakable, right there beside the vehicles. The sheriff pressed her, and her denials got more desperate, her voice rising until she sounded like someone cornered. Then came a twist I never saw coming. Mrs. Dolores Santos, my elderly neighbor, stepped in like she'd been waiting 15 years for this moment. She pulled out her own folder, full of permits, financial records, even more photos. Turns out, she'd worked with Karen back in the county office and had quietly been making copies of every suspicious document for a decade. She and my grandfather had been collaborating the whole time, documenting everything, hoping someday it'd all come to light. By then, Karen's mask was off. She slumped against the wall, sobbing, confessing about gambling debts and how she'd been forced to help with paperwork, that refusing wasn't an option. But the mountain of evidence said otherwise. The metal box held more. A digital recorder, my grandpa calmly threatening to take everything to the FBI, Karen pleading and then threatening right back. Her voice on that tape chilled me. She called people merchandise, inventory, like she was ordering office supplies, not talking about lives. Mrs. Santos had the final nail copies of every offer Karen had made to buy my grandpa's land, all through fake companies, desperate to get her hands on whatever he was hiding. She'd even tracked permits that allowed humanitarian relocation code for trafficking. My grandpa had sent everything to the FBI just days before he died, explaining in his last email that if anything happened to him, Karen and her friends were responsible. That morning, Sheriff Martinez got a call from Agent Sarah Chun with the FBI. Turns out they'd been investigating for years, following the money through fake HOA improvement projects, inflated fees, and dummy contractors. Karen's complaint, her need to control the barn inspection, had given them the opening they needed. She literally walked law enforcement into her own downfall. The FBI swarmed in, collected the evidence, and quietly arrested Karen right there in my grandpa's barn. She tried one last time to play the victim, but no one was buying it. And it didn't stop with her. Other HOA board members went down too. The treasurer was caught trying to wipe his computer. The secretary nabbed at her real estate office. The vice president at a bank withdrawing what turned out to be laundered money. The whole neighborhood had unknowingly been funding a criminal network. Every HOA fee a drop in the bucket for a human trafficking ring that stretched across half the state. The news exploded online. Video of Karen's arrest went viral. Survivors of the ring started coming forward, identifying her by face and voice. The trial that followed was brutal, witness after witness describing years of abuse and loss. Karen, once the queen bee of Meadowbrook Heights, ended up in an orange jumpsuit, sentenced to 25 years. No more appeals, no more power. But here's the thing. Justice doesn't always feel the way you imagine. There was no moment of triumph for me, just a quiet weight settling over the ranch. My grandpa's work, his sacrifice meant something now. The old barn that had once been the center of so much fear became the new center for healing. We turned it into a place for trafficking survivors to start over, with Mrs. Santos elected as the new HOA president, promising total transparency. My grandfather's last letter arrived on the anniversary of his death, explaining everything he'd done, why he'd kept going even when the threats got real. He wrote, "If my death brings attention to their suffering and helps bring their tormentors to justice, then it will have served a purpose." And honestly, I believe him. The story rippled out. Operation Clean House, they called it, with arrests in other neighborhoods where people thought their biggest problem was crabgrass. Folks started realizing, sometimes the real monsters aren't hiding in the shadows, but sitting at the front of the community meeting, telling you how to live your life. Now, every so often, someone asks if I want to run the new HOA. I always laugh after what I've seen. Why would anyone want to be the person neighbors call Karen? Real community isn't built on power, but on people willing to protect each other, no matter what it costs. And Karen? She ended up cooperating, testifying against the wider network, helping law enforcement take down the same people she used to work for. Like Agent Chun told me, sometimes justice comes from the least likely places, and the truth has a way of finding its way out no matter how deep someone tries to bury it. So let me ask you, have you ever had a neighbor or an HOA president who seemed a little too obsessed with control, a little too eager to keep secrets? Share your story down below, because when we talk about this stuff, the patterns come out, and maybe, just maybe, we keep the next tragedy from happening. If this story hit home for you, drop a comment, tell a friend, and let's keep shining a light on the places where people think nobody's watching. The truth, sooner or later, always comes home.